Windsurf was one of the founders of the internet with www being implemented. He himself wouldn't have thought the kind of influence that internet is having with the present generation and how it's going to evolve further. He received a Turing Award for this invention. This would be the outline of the presentation today. An introduction followed by a definition on social internet of things, then the difference between IoT and SIoT, then social internet of things have a specific network structure which we'll be touching upon. Significance of trust management in how or why is trust management important in social internet of things. Properties of trust, then trust related attacks, need for trust in SIoT, classification of some SIoT trust models, followed by some case studies and research scope. We discussed this even in the first slide. Internet of Things is anything that connects to the internet. IoT basically is expected to be dominated by huge content-oriented traffic with intensive interactions and heterogeneous communication among hosts and smart things. As you know, sensors and mobile devices would be sensing as well as monitoring, collecting different kinds of data about human social life. These data that are collected about human social life can be aggregated, that is collectively joined together, fused, processed, analyzed, mined to extract useful information. So that from that it's able to provide you with intelligent and ubiquitous services. This actually is a social IoT use case scenario in which if you would see a Ben's health band social network, if there is a drop in the pulse, it's able to actually connect to the PDA or else mobile phone or else to another fit band that is part of the family member to check upon which doctor can be consulted for. So the devices are able to socialize with one another. The same happens even in the car social network, in which a car is able to communicate with other cars to get the traffic status information from all possible routes to decide upon which route would be the optimal one. The same applies even with if there is a farmer and he has a device. If he wants to look at for a particular crop, what is the kind of fertilizers that he is supposed to use or the kind of information about that, then the device will automatically try fetching those things from other devices. So with all this, you can understand that your search, your many of your activities would be automatically done by the system and given to you, just like how uh, uh, PA is able to do it for you. Even in inventory tracking, each of the device location can be sent onto one system, which all this is done automatically without any human intervention. These are the use cases for a social Internet of Things. So what is the definition for SIoT? Social networking concept applied or used in Internet of Things or explored or exploited in Internet of Things is what is SIoT. So social IoT or SIoT is a new paradigm where IoT merges with social networks, allowing people and devices to interact, facilitating information sharing, and enabling variety of attractive applications. Basically, integrating social networking concept into IoT has led to the SIoT paradigm, which enables people and connected devices to interact, facilitate, and gain from it. So what actually is the difference between IoT and SIoT? Basically, IoT is limited to smart objects with communication, addressing schemes, and a bit of data analytics. SIoT, you have smart objects plus social consciousness coming into it. When we say social objects, again, objects can build their own social network, which may be different from that of a owner. So if you refer to literature, there are two concepts. One is some authors debate or argue that it is restricted to the owner's social context, whereas some authors are able to say that the device can have its own social context. So when we look at the network structure for SIoT, it is similar to human social networks. Socialization among objects is classified into parental object relationship. Uh, Basically, the objects that are built at the same period by the same manufacturer, all of them come or share this relationship. A Samsung phone, which is manufactured in the year 2018 or 2019, all this would become or share a parental object relationship. Co-location object relationship or co-work, basically the set of devices that share personal or public, basically public relationship or relationship at a workplace falls under co-work object relation. The devices that share a personal relation, experiences, fall under co-location object relationship. At your home, all the devices would fall under co-location. The device that you carry it onto the work, they actually classify the objects at your workplace with the device that you take as co-work object relationship. Then you have ownership object relationship. Objects like cell phones, laptops, PDAs, and some more, which maybe even your fit band, all this that are owned by the same user would fall under ownership object relationship. Next one is the social object relationship. This is established when an object comes into contact sporadically or continuously for reasons related to relations among their owners. So basically, if I have friends whom I meet regularly in the evening hours, or else once in a while, sporadically means rarely, continuously means regularly. It tries to actually also try understanding a social object relationship. So these relationship are created and updated on a regular basis of the object's features like object type, computational power, mobility capabilities, brand, and activity. Like it tries to understand the other device, understand its features, try to classify and recognize using all this. It is to be noted that the establishment and management of such relationship should not expect human intervention. Humans should only be responsible to set the rules of object social relation in interactions. So humans should not be involved in everyday activity of managing it, but must set only the outermost provisions. There are different network structures that have been proposed based upon different authors. This is another SIoT structure, which is based upon three kinds of social relationships connecting objects owners. One is the friendship relationship, which represents intimacy. Social contact relationship, which represents closeness and proximity. Community of interest relationship, which basically represents common knowledge or experiences. So each of it has its own relationship being defined.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, for few of them, the PPT is not visible, sir. Can you present it again, sir?
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now it is visible.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir, now for them.
Okay.
Fine. Thank you, sir.
So basically, design of a source SIoT network structure is based upon inter-object social relationship or social relationships between object owners, or it can also be a combination of this. As I told you, it is restricted by some authors that it is only between the owners. In some literature, it's about object having a relationship. So when we take both, then there are these uh, different possible relationships, human to human, which actually already exists, object to object, which actually now with SIoT is coming into picture, human to object is also now new with SIoT. So these are the different possible relationships. Now, if you would anyone would have uh, studied ad hoc networks, there are some of the routing protocols in which trust is taken as a imaginary metric, and nodes, should it be trusted to route through it or not, and all is being mathematically analyzed. So without trustworthy technologies, uh, you cannot ensure users safe communication, or SIoT wouldn't be successful if there is no trust. Only when people trust a technology, they will start using it and it becomes prevalent, or it gets imbibed into the society. So trust is something which is a very prominent and a very important uh, character or property. Even security, if we build, then actually it indirectly impacts your trust value. The more secure it is, the more trustworthy it becomes. So trust management is a challenge for uh, reliable data analytics. Trust is a very abstract entity which can be defined with different fields like psychology. We are trying to quantify it and try putting it into devices, just like how uh, human uh, intelligence is being tried to be quantified with artificial intelligence. So properties of trust. A trust relationship involves at least two entities. One is a truster and the other one is a trustee. Both of them are actually dependent upon each other for mutual benefit, and the context in which the trust relationship exists. So again, trust is classified into direct trust. When we interact with a person, we understand and we trust that person based upon our direct experiences. This is what is called as a direct trust. Another is the indirect trust. Indirect trust is via media or else via friends. We get to hear about something and we try to build a perception or a trust value on some people or on some incidents or experience. So that is what is indirect trust or transitive trust. The next one is the local trust. It is very specific between truster and trustee. Actually, local trust just means that I trust upon a friend doesn't mean someone else will also have the same amount of trust on that person. So the trust that I have is very specific, very local between me and my friend. Maybe someone else might have lesser trust upon the same person, or he might have more trust upon that same person. So it's very personal or specific. This actually is a conceptual trust model which explains the different interactions that are possible. You have a trustee, you have a truster. Whenever there is a query, the trustee checks for the trustworthiness in the environment. When that query comes, the truster is able to give a value, the perceived value based upon history, based upon many characteristics. Looking at that value, the trustee now decides upon whether to go ahead with the process of communication or sharing and other things. So all these risks are now being routed through a model where truster, trust, and trustee do. Some of the properties of trust, uh, basically, as we discussed before, local trust. There is also something called as a global trust, which is called as a reputation also. If we try to keep only local trust, then a new node that comes in may not be able to have any value about anyone else. So you must have some amount of information about each node as a global trust. Later, you can use local trust also based upon your personal interaction. Then make a proper balance between these two to decide or arrive at a proper trust value. So basically, global trust is the reputation. Every node will have a unique trust value in the network, which will be known by all other nodes. So this is what is the reputation or global trust. Trust is basically asymmetric, which means I must trust a person A. That doesn't mean the person A will also trust me. It is one-sided. So that is why it's asymmetric. Trust is subjective. As I told you, it's inherently a personal opinion based upon various factors or evidence. Each person might have different levels of trust on a particular person because of this subjective characteristic. Trust is also objective when you are able to arrive at the trust value based upon the quality of service properties of the device. See, if you bring in trust as a emotional and other uh, uh, parameters, then it becomes subjective. If you can quantify it with only the QoS metrics of that device, then it becomes objective. So all this objective, subjective, global, local, all this is supposed to be combined together in some equation to arrive at the actual trust value. Trust is also actually context dependent. Okay. If there is a doctor, I can trust and take his opinion and take medicine, or I can go for an operation depending upon him. The same person, if he comes to ride a car, as a driver, I may not trust him, or I may not have the same uh, uh, belief that he would be able to do well in this. So just because the person is same, the context differs, the trust is also differing. As a surgeon or as a doctor, the trust is good, but as a driver, the trust is, the person is same, it's poor. So context dependent. Trust is also a composite property, as I told you. Oh, these are some of the properties: reliability, dependability, honesty, truthfulness, security, uh, competence, being timely, uh, history is another. Past experience would definitely have an influence on the current level or current value of trust. So that's what is history. Dynamic trust is um, continuously changing with time. The same person whom I might not have trusted 2 or 3 years before, I might be able to do that now. So it is not something which is static. It cannot be static. These are some of the trust related attacks that are possible. A malicious node tries to break the basic functionality of any IoT. A self-promoting attack basically means a malicious node promotes its importance so that it is always selected as a service provider. See, when I say trust, obviously I build it based upon the different inputs. So if I am going to promote myself by increasing my own value, and I increase it such that I am always having a high, I enjoy highest trust, then obviously to offer or to uh, take service, the different systems in the network will try to choose me. Okay, once they have chosen me, I don't service them, or uh, I malfunction, or I don't perform properly. This is what is called as a self-promoting attack. Bad mouthing attack basically means I uh, give a lesser rating for a genuine, legitimate uh, node. Okay. So when I do that, on a long run, the global trust value of that node keeps getting affected. So basically, bad mouthing is a way of trying to ruin the reputation of well-behaved nodes so that its chances of being selected as a service provider is decreased. Next is ballot stuffing attack. It is a way of trying to boost the reputation of bad nodes with good recommendations. Then we have a whitewashing attack, where a malicious node can disappear and rejoin the application. That is like resetting our trust value. I perform certain activities because of which others lose the trust value. Now I get out of that network and I rejoin. When I rejoin, actually, my uh, history of mistakes is reset back. This should not happen basically. That is one way of trying to uh, uh, affect the performance of the system. The other one is the discriminatory attack, in which a malicious node or a attacker can try to discriminate or single out a particular node which do not have a strong social ties. Just like how someone gets bullied because he doesn't have friends. Similar to that, even among nodes, a particular node can be separated out. This is what is a discriminatory attack. Opportunistic service attack uh, uh, basically just means that a node will provide good service until it gains high reputation. When it has attained the reputation to be fine, then it will collude with others to perform bad mouthing or else palette stuffing. So this is what is opportunistic service attack. Basically, what are the needs for trust management? As I discussed, social IoT cannot be successful until and unless people are able to have trust and leverage it. But apart from that, uh, SIoT has a huge amount of entities and devices, whereas in a social network, there is no entities or devices. It's just a information. Uh, SIoT will be dealing with IoT devices, obviously with storage, resources like storage, computation, energy, and all becomes a challenge. Whereas social networks have like Facebook or LinkedIn is working upon PDAs or phones and computers which can be put to charge. They are not power constrained. Similarly, uh, IoT networks can be highly dynamic, whereas social networks are not like that. These are some of the characteristic differences between social networks and SIoT. These are other uh, properties by which SIoT differ from social networks. One is criticality and sensitiveness, uh, power efficiency, scalability. Scalability with SIoT is a challenge. Adaptability, survivability, power efficiency and resilience. These are some classification of SIoT trust models. Trust computation techniques are classified based upon trust composition, trust propagation, trust aggregation, and trust update. Now we'll look at each one. First one is the trust composition. Basically, trust composition refers to what factors to consider in trust computation, especially quality of service trust and social trust. Basically, there are two types. One is the QoS trust. As I told you, actually that's a definitive trust value. QoS trust basically refers to the trust value that the IoT device will be able to provide quality service in response to the service request. This QoS trust can be measured with intimacy, cooperativeness, reliability, task completion capability. These are some of the uh, characteristics with which you are able to arrive at that value. The other one is the social trust. Social trust basically is derived from the social relationship between the owners of IoT devices. And this is measured with intimacy, honesty, privacy, centrality, and connectivity. Next one is the trust propagation models. There are two trust propagation model. One is called as the distributed trust propagation model, in which the IoT devices propagate trust observation to other IoT devices, uh, which they encounter or interact without any centralized entity. Okay, with distributed trust propagation, you will not have a centralized entity and it is scalable. Whereas centralized trust propagation model will demand for a centralized entity and might use structures like distributed hash table. Then we have trust aggregation. This basically is the different ways of aggregating trust observation, which can be based upon static weighted sum, dynamic weighted sum, Bayesian model, and fuzzy logic. Trust update again concerns where how do you uh, edit the trust value. One is it can be event driven based upon an event of message being sent, received, or else some other event, or it can be time driven where after every t units of time the trust value is updated. These are some of the case studies with the trust model, dynamic trust management for Internet of Things applications. F. Bao and Chen. Basically, these many of the SIoT trust models have been proposed and improvised by these authors, as I could see through the literature survey. With this, these are the authors who have considered social relationship in trust management for IoT. They are the first one to propose about trust management. Basically, they propose a new protocol for trust management with honesty, cooperativeness, community interest as parameters. Basically, honesty refers to the belief of a node that another node is honest based on direct observations. Using a set of anomaly detection rules, a node can basically count suspicious or dishonest experiences it has observed during a time delta t. With such discrepancy, all this being noted, it tries to arrive at this honesty value. The other one is the cooperativeness, which basically reflects the willingness of a node to help other nodes, or else in providing services for other nodes. The uncooperative node basically is one which doesn't go to help any other node, but we cannot mark it as a malicious node because it doesn't harm the basic functionality of the IoT network. It is basically working upon its own interest. So how is this cooperativeness value computed? It is a ratio of the number of common friends over the number of over total number of neighbors or friends. So cooperative common friends, when we say cooperative nodes or cooperative devices over the total number of devices, that is what is the cooperativeness value. Next is the community interest, which represents the degree of common interest or capabilities between two nodes, and it is the ratio of the number of common community to the group interests over the total number of community. So that's also a ratio. The both direct as well as indirect trust has been considered in this literature. Direct trust basically is an aggregation of honesty, cooperativeness, and community interest values. Which only if I and j, basically the two nodes, if they would have communicated with one another in the past. If the two nodes have never communicated, then actually it will consider the indirect trust, which is based on the observation and past experiences of other nodes in the concerned node. So until and unless you have direct trust value, if you do not have it, then obviously you are supposed to rely upon what others give you. So this proposed protocol, which uses both direct and indirect trust, and it is also composite because it is dependent upon three factors: subjective and also asymmetric. Next, as an improvement over the previous model, the same authors have proposed an improvement. They use the same trust measure, which actually is the aggregation of honesty, cooperativeness, and community interest. But they also take into consideration other aspects such as scalability, adaptability, and survivability of the protocol. Here, the update of trust values is always event driven, and the trust values are computed only for a limited set of nodes so that the computation is minimized and also it is scalable. The next one is actually an adaptive and scalable trust management protocol for service oriented architecture based IoT systems. This proposed approach basically is able to avoid self-promotion, bad mouthing, ballot stuffing, and opportunistic service attacks. It's able to support scalability and limited storage, along with computing capability of IoT devices itself. These are some of the other models that are proposed, which you can go through. This context-based social trust model for the Internet of Things. This is designed to increase the collaboration among trusted nodes and limit the interaction of suspicious devices. When we talk of context importance, it basically refers to how often an interaction in a specific context may occur. If the context is very specific, then more weightage is given to it. Then coming on to the next parameter, like node computation power, it signifies the decrease in computational power and capability of a node to act maliciously, basically. Confidence is another parameter which is the number of recommendations that are coming from other nodes for a particular device. So that's what is the confidence value. Feedback is a performance evaluation of the node after the transaction is completed. So each node will have its own evaluation for every transaction that it does with every other node. The social relationship of a node would consist of two factors. One is the owner trust, which is dependent upon friendship, which refers to the entire mutual friends of both the owners, and it also depicts the node's influence in a social network. So these are the two parameters by which the owner trust value is arrived at. The other one is the SIoT relationship, which expresses the type of relationship nodes are characterized by the relationship factor. This proposed model basically is an adaptive model that is able to adjust itself according to the behavioral pattern changes in the IoT environment. It does not depend upon any specific nodes or peers. This is another one, and this is the other one. These are some of the research gaps that are available in SIoT trust model. One is the trust management model, accounting all social relationships between objects and human. Object to object relationship is taken. Human to human relationship is considered and it has an impact, but object to human relationship is not taken much in any of the literature. So that is one area of research that it is open towards. There are few works that addresses object trust and contextual trust. As I told you, contextual trust means the same person would have different trust values based upon the different roles that he plays. So this is something which you are supposed to try limiting it with the varied roles that you wish to focus upon. As of now, there is no research that has happened taking contextual trust as a parameter. A discriminatory attack like bullying is not being addressed or not focused upon in the SIoT scenario till now. There are not much work that has happened with whitewashing or opportunistic service attacks. Basically a node which tries to act well until it attains a certain value and suddenly misbehaves. That is something which is not very easy to track or to identify. Again, once it loses its trust, again it behaves well. So this is a challenge to estimate or look at. Whitewashing attack is something which actually can be addressed with global trust value getting updated as soon as a node leaves. If that is done, at least some amount of this whitewashing can be addressed. These are all some of the scopes for research. There is also not much of work that has focused upon power efficiency and survivability when it comes to trust. Basically, trust becomes a computationally intensive job with so many attributes, because of which it pulls down the power efficiency of a system. Centralized trust propagation, basically that is not practically seen as a viable scenario in a SIoT. So distributed trust propagation is what is very vastly discussed. There is no work that uses Bayesian model for trust aggregation. I have seen work with static weight summing as well as dynamic weight summing. Even trust update is very predominantly event based than time driven. So with this, I end my presentation. If you have any questions, you can ask.